All right, Destiny. I look forward to giving you this Zoom call reading today. And this will also be used as an example for other people to see how one is put on and how one's, carried out for other people to see how they may be interested in it. And so everyone will know that you haven't filled out a health questionnaire for me yet. So I don't know about your health information, just except for maybe some small things or general things. And
Yep.
then we're going to go from there and see how much the eye reading is real accurate on some of the issues that you're going through. So it'll be real informative for everyone that will watch it back, but also for you for a recording for later. And then also just let everyone know that we'll be talking mostly generalized about the conditions of the body and what the eyes tell me. And then some things that you're comfortable with sharing, maybe your personal health information. You've told me that you're comfortable with that. So everyone knows that
Yes.
we're not
Yeah.
revealing people's information in iridology readings that they're not comfortable with sharing with others. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm
Okay.
open to all spectrums. It's fine.
Great. Because just don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All
And
right.
thank you, Dad, for doing this.
Yes,
Giving
no
great
problem.
awareness for everybody else
Exactly. That's
as
the
well.
main reason why I'm doing it, is because I think this is the wave of the future. Because so many people, they love the written iridology readings too. But I think the video, so many people are visual these days. And
Absolutely.
with them being visual, they like something like this because it's so much more in depth. But also they have a chance to ask questions. But also all of this is being recorded, so they can go back and watch it at another
Elaborate
time.
on it. Hmm.
So because that way they don't have to write so many notes, and some things they'll miss. And so that's why I'm having
Stay in the
lots of people.
moment. Stay in the now.
That's right. That's right. And I'm having so many people that are telling me that this gives it so much more value, because you also do get the written protocol. I mean, the written report too, that you can go back and read again. And that's what we're going to be looking over today, because I first have to do the written report, and then I go over the written report with you on the Zoom call. The Zoom call is kind of like the follow up. It's like people are used to that. They're used to a follow up phone call. Well, this is a follow up video call that I can share my screen, and I can kind of go over your eyes with you. And people like that because it's kind of, when they can see me showing them in their eyes where the weaknesses are at, they're like, wow, okay, now I see where he's seeing this and how he's seeing it, and to the degree of how strong it is. And the better the quality photograph, the more you can zoom in on it and you can see those things. And so that's why it's very good for these kind of calls to get a really good quality photograph. Um, but yeah, so this is just something that I think it's a way to take our readings for international people that can't always go to a live iridologist, that they can actually go over that with you live. Well, this is a way to do it with people all over the world, because the video conferencing is the wave of the future. So yeah, all right, we'll get started, and hopefully I won't have too many people messaging me. I wish I could turn those notifications off so it won't keep dinging.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
everyone will just have to be, patient with that. All right, well, I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll go through it. All right, this is my desktop, and usually I have way more eyes than this out here, and everyone always comments, are like, wow, that looks kind of creepy, like people are looking at you. But yeah, it's just, I'm always having to organize them and stuff. I have a lot of these folders, and I keep everyone's eye readings and eye pictures for records, to go back, and if I need to do a comparison reading for them later, because I give all my clients free update readings, because I want to see your progress too, because it's very encouraging. I like to see the changes, and then plus
How often do you do that? Every
I
year or
well, every 6 months to a
6 months?
year.
6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. And that way that it helps them to see the progress they're having. Also, it helps to show those doubters out there that don't believe that eyes change, which that's so not true, because that's
Yeah.
proofs in the pudding when you can physically see it. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
can't wait to see my eyes in 3 years, because I know
I
it'll be
know, I know.
good.
And the biggest thing that you will see, so you can even see it right here when we don't even look at it, is that that you have blue eyes for sure, because
Yeah.
you can tell you have too much colors down here that you can tell the blue, and plus you probably have some family members that have blue eyes too. See, the only people, do you have any family members?
Well, it's quite ironic because almost everybody on my mom's that I know of, my dad does have some blue eyes as well in his family, but almost everybody on my mom's side of the family will all have these like honey brown eyes. So they're supposed to be genetically blue.
Yeah, well, see, the thing that I want other people to hear too is that, of course, iridology, Dr. Jensen and Dr. Morse, they all talk about the only two true colors of eye is blue
Mm-hmm.
and brown.
Yeah.
Well, the only true brown eye people really are your people like the Africans, the Asians, the India people, the Spanish heritage people, the Mexicans, the Spanish. Those kind
Yeah.
of people have the true brown eyes. And then everyone else is from European heritage or mixed. If you're mixed now, Dr. Jensen and Dr. Morse explained, it's either going to take one side or the other. It's not going to be a combination of the two. And
Right.
so that's why people are confused sometimes about the different colors, But yeah, but anyways, over time, the biggest thing you're going to see in your eyes is they're going to just get more blue. You're going to see a lot of
Mhm.
that orange and that sulfur go away, and you're going to see some of those
So
drug
much sulfur.
spots or the
Yeah.
Sora spots go down. And then it's even possible you may have taken some iodine at one time because Dr. Jensen and Dr. Morse talked about that when you see red in the eye, that could be
Mhm.
iodine. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, we'll go through it now and see. Here's what one of the reports look like, and I'll be sending this to you too, of course, so you'll have it for your records. And this is what I do with all my reports. This is just for looks, but it is somewhat accurate because the only thing that's not accurate is it actually needs to be moved out a little bit because I can't ever get the chart to line up with the actual pupil. See some of the stomach areas inside the pupil area, but it's still
Yeah.
a good idea of what it looks like. And we make that up in this PDF where you can change the transparency and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
my girlfriend helped me with that, and it's really cool, just for looks more or less. But okay,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. He's Illustrator and Photoshop, so I'm there.
yeah. Well, actually, we do it all through the PDF. It lets you do that
Right.
on the MacBook. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then one time I had a patient or a client of Dr. Morse's. They had got a reading from him, and they didn't understand how to decipher his handwriting and all of what he said. So she sent me the whole written report, and I got a lot of this information in these blue boxes are from that report from Dr. Morse. But of
Yeah.
course, I gave him credit for it, every one of them,
Mhm.
because every box that you see, it's got the person that's saying the words. Because I believe in giving credit where credit is due. And this is the box that it talks about the colors of the eyes, and talking even about that of the mixed races I was telling you about before. Yeah, it's very interesting. Even drug deposits, metals, and various chemicals. Did you know even Dr. Jensen talked about that even iron, back in the old days, in his days, he could see iron deposits in the eye too.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so it's interesting like that. But yeah. And then your pupils look pretty good. They weren't distorted or dilated or anything. Constitution, your constitution is good. You got a strong constitution. And
You should have
you're
saw it a year and a half ago.
wow, that's great. You've
Yeah.
made some improvements. That's
Yeah.
good. This come out of Dr. Jensen's book, and it shows the 5 stages. Dr. Morris, now he just talked about strong, medium, or poor. But this is the 5 stages, and it shows a little bit better of what the constitution looks like. And then this is the box from Dr. Morse talking about the strength of genetics. And I'll let you, so it won't take up too much time on the call. I'll let you go back and read all these, of course, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then like this is what I talked about. The course, this whole layout, the way we laid out the PDF is the way Dr. Morse had it laid out too. So it kind of emulated that, of course. And a lot of these checkoff boxes are similar too, except some of them I added in there too. But that's where I got that from on his. He said red or brown, possible iodine. Sulfur is always usually orange.
Mhm.
Because lymphatic stagnation is always yellow, or it can turn into a brown or green. And it can be green because when the yellow mixes with the blue eye, it can turn green. That's why people think they have green eyes.
Right.
And then drug spots. And then a cholesterol ring. I didn't see any, of course, or sodium ring. Some people, they think,
I
go ahead.
think a little bit, but I mean that could have improved since
Do what now? What did you say? I didn't hear you.
my cholesterol ring could have improved
Oh, yeah.
from April from level 1 to level 2. So
Yeah, it's possible. But also Dr. Jensen, he talked about, and I remember Dr. Morse said this in class, he didn't believe that it's a sodium ring. He just believed that it's a cholesterol ring. Well, Dr. Jensen, when I was reading more in his book, because I have to keep going back and rereading that book because it's so thick and thorough, and it's like a college textbook. You have to just keep rereading it. And Dr. Jensen said that something very interesting about the African race is that they put a lot of salt in their food, and he said he could see that a lot of time in their eyes, that it wasn't just cholesterol, it was the salt, the buildup of salt around their pupil. But you really can't tell which is which. If they're consuming a lot of cholesterol foods too, then it could be just a combination. So yeah. All right. And then now the digestive system. Yeah, I'll show you where these areas are. And this is the part where I always talk about to start off what the neural arch is. And I give an example or I give a good description from the book, and also so other people can hear it too, to help you to understand the importance. And it's up in the high 90s that everyone has neural
Yeah.
arch weaknesses. And it's all because of the autonomic nervous system and the that whole area and how everything is tied in with the nervous system. And so it's amazing. It really is, because it shows the reason why people get so confused. And I'm going to go into that in a minute, and you'll see why it's across the board. It's important for everyone in the world to understand that connection. But okay, and this is what I do. I take and we'll look at those areas in your eye now, and I'll show you. Oh, okay, the right eye. All right. I'm going to zoom in. Let's not go too close. And then again, I use the transparency and I compensate a little bit for it. Still doing the mapping, but also compensate for if the pupil's offline or anything, which it's not. It's pretty good. All right. Get my transparency up there. See, this is your liver zone. See, the liver, that's why I said your liver looks, overall, that whole big weakness there, that's your liver area. So that's why I call that chronic, even though it's not very deep like some of these up here, which these aren't real bad deep. Nothing you have is degenerative because it's not that deep, and plus you can see the white lines underneath it. That means that what Jensen talked about, that's starting to show healing lines, but yeah, you could have had some little bit of weakness going on in your liver over time. And it could have been from all the medications you may have had to take or over the years, because that may be why you have the drug spots too. Or it could have been something inherited too, And then this is your big weakness in your pancreas area. And then your gallbladder is right between that, but it's not it's not a major weakness there for your gallbladder, because you can tell. But this is a big pancreas area though, so that's definitely chronic, And that just means, that doesn't mean that, you're in danger of diabetes or anything like that. It just means that you have a weakness probably in digestion and stuff like that,
Big time, yeah. Always gassy and bloaty and
exactly. You may see undigested food particles in your stool and stuff like that, Okay, now let's talk about the neural arch for everyone, and also for you to hear it too, so you'll have it on your recording. For everyone watching and yourself, I get this from Dr. Jensen's Guide to Better Bowel Care book. And he talked about it, and this is the picture from the book talking about the what we see in the embryonic stage of development. And the way he discovered this, that's very interesting, is he called this his greatest discovery. And to hear Dr. Jensen with all the major things he talked about with iridology say that's pretty big, But the reason why is because he went to the doctor and he was having problems with his hip and knee, or hip and leg. And he got an x-ray of it, and he said that he noticed that he had a big bowel pocket right there where his hip and leg was on the iridology, reading. And he said there was a relationship between the dirty bowel pocket I saw on my x-ray and the symptoms I was experiencing in my hip and leg. Treating the hip and leg with various therapies did nothing to get at the root cause of the problem. As long as the colon condition remained untreated, the symptoms persisted. The neural arch reflex is a perfect example of why the bowel is the king of the eliminative channels. Well, I say, combining Dr. Morse's teachings, that I think the bowels and the lymphatic system are tied because they're two of the biggest. And then I say that the kidneys are right below that. And then I say the master glands are next because yes, the adrenal glands are very important to help the bowels to flow properly too, and the lymphatic system. But if the master glands aren't working efficiently, how do you expect the adrenal glands to work efficiently? So, and then see, a lot of times the transverse colon, when it's clogged up real bad in the bowels, how do you expect the head to drain properly so that then you'll get all those acids out of the way so the master glands can work better? So that's why I've seen so many people that when they start seeing a lot of the trash coming out their bowels and they free up all those acids that are hurting these neural arch weaknesses, then it helps the head to start draining, and then everything starts to work better, So that's why so many of us, we have better progress when we start with the bowels a lot of times, because so many people have problems with constipation and diarrhea and just all kind of stuff that's going on in their bowels, But
absolutely. And just everything, learning everything last year more in depth. That's my approach that I've taken this late winter and early spring, is just starting over again and just trying to focus on my bowels, and then
Yeah.
move on from there.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not just the area of the bowels where the waste flows. It's the
Yep.
wall of the bowels and the not only the large intestines but the small intestines too, because they're so small in diameter, and we can do enemas and all that for the large intestines, but that doesn't help the small intestines. That's why
Absolutely.
using the herbs like stomach and bowel and the or it's
Mm-hmm.
called the GI Renew now. You heard about him changing the name. You
Yep.
heard about that, yeah. And
Yep.
then
I read the email.
yeah, and then also the GI broom, and then also the lymphatic capsules to help pull on the wall of the bowel, and and that helps the small intestines to get clear, and that's where people have the problems with malabsorption so much. And you have a little bit of that. And we'll go into that soon too. But the part that was the biggest punchline of this whole neural arch understanding, to help everyone listening and yourself too, was he said, to learn more about the bowel reflex, which I named the neural arch reflex, I began to study embryology. I learned that by the second week of formation, the embryo takes on the shape of the primitive gut tube, and its nervous system begins to form. That's what this is. The black part, this is the diagram he's talking about. This is in the embryonic stage. This is in 2 weeks, when they're 2 weeks old, or
Yep.
the embryo is 2 weeks old, and what happens is the organs start to bud out from this primitive gut tube. And he said that this means the bowel tissue and the nerve tissue are very intimately related. And that's what people don't understand, is that everything is neurologically connected. And so your nervous system that's actually our number one thing we have to work on the most, because we're so much spirit that your spiritual and mental state is always your greatest thing. You're always going to work on more than just the physical body, because you can work on the physical body all day long. And if you have too
Yep.
much stress and all that, it's not even going to really help as much. Because I talk to my clients all the time. Since I've discovered this about the neural arch, I keep seeing this being proven to me every time I talk to my clients. Because I had a lady, she called me up from Sweden, and she said, Thad, I notice that on days I feel pretty good, I don't feel much problems in my body, but days when I'm stressed or I don't get enough sleep, I'll start feeling heart palpitations, my stomach will start bothering me. And I said, that's because of the stress. And I said, did you know even too much excitement can irritate your nervous system? And that's where it goes back to the talk of being balanced as much as we can, because don't let ourselves go too far extreme to one direction or too far under. Because Dr. Jensen talked about that. He said the bowels are so sensitive, even too much excitement or too much negativity can affect the nervous system of the bowels. And so that's why it's very important for people to understand that, that releasing old traumas and letting go of old past things that have made us feel held to certain emotions and feelings, that's very, very important. And that's something we could have a whole discussion about if we
Oh
really
yeah.
went into it. But he
Yeah.
went on and he said, see figure 4.1 on page 91. That's what this figure is. He said, by the fourth week, buds such as lung bud and liver bud begin to bulge out from the gut and nerve tissue. By the sixth week, most of the organ buds begin to form. These organ buds, I suddenly noticed, are covered with a membrane made up of the same tissue that formed the bowel and nerve tissue in the earlier embryo. That was when I realized that the tissue of the primitive gut surrounds each organ with a membrane. All of a sudden it came to me. This is how the genetic weakness of the mother and father are passed down to the children, through the gut and nerve tissue that becomes the membrane covering the organs. Where the bowel has an inherent weakness, the organ that developed from that area of the bowel also has an inherent weakness. This is the key to the neural arch syndrome. I could now see how certain areas of the bowel were reflexly related to specific organs. Any genetic weakness in the bowel could affect the performance of the organ associated with that part of the bowel. Toxicity or nutrient depletion in one would affect the other. This makes that part of the bowel and that organ more subject to breakdown and consecutively to disease. And where this has been proven time and time again to be 100% true is probably the most common example of a neural arch weakness that everyone here listening can relate to this, because I have so many people tell me this over and over and over again, and you may have even experienced yourself. And let's see what you tell us all that's listening.
Okay.
He says, a common example of the neural arch reflex is seen with heart problems. Diverticulum located midway down the descending colon can reflexly interfere with nerve impulses to the heart, resulting in arrhythmias. And see, do you see on your iris right here, and for everyone watching, when you see
Yep.
this pocket in here in this area, that's what they call it could be diverticulum or bowel pocketing. And that's very common from being constipated and straining too much on the toilet and stuff, it's just little like air bubbles that bubble out the side of it, but that can get trapped with food and gas and stuff. And you know, I see this all the time in this area of the heart zone, that people will talk about that they'll feel heart palpitations in their heart or arrhythmias when especially when they're stressed. And then they'll go to the doctor and get it analyzed, and doctors say there's nothing wrong with your heart, it's just coming
Yep.
from somewhere else. And you know, he said there on the very bottom, he said symptoms associated with bowel irritation may manifest in the heart, but in such a case there's nothing wrong with the heart itself. So when I put right here that is a chronic heart weakness, but it's not to say that you got a real problem in the heart. It's just the heart the bowels are causing the heart to be weakened. It's not saying you're in danger of anything. Now, if you kept letting it get worse and worse, it's possible.
Ab-
But, you know, but
yeah.
do you ever notice that yourself? You feel little flutters in your heart zone?
Oh, yeah. Since I was 15.
Yeah.
Not so much now. I feel like I have it under control, obviously, with my diet and everything. I
Yeah.
don't have any desire to eat anything but fruit for the most part.
Yeah.
But just because it's the only thing that makes me feel good. But yes, I mean, all
Yeah,
the time.
exactly.
If
Well,
I
let
eat
me,
some bread
yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
be in a
Yeah.
stressful environment or just,
Yeah.
I would definitely have chest pains all day.
Yeah. Well, let me show you another one that you may not even be aware of, that you have one too that's actually, it's not as big as this heart zone one, but
Mm-hmm.
it's almost as serious, or not serious, just as big, is right here. And what this is this is what's called, let me show you. When you look on this chart, there is these flexure points in our large intestine. See, this is called the hepatic flexure. This is called the splenic flexure, and this is the sigmoid flexure. It's not called that on here, but that is what that's called right there. Because
Yeah.
Dr. Jensen talked about that next after the heart. He said another example is the nerve interference that can result from chronic irritation at the sigmoid flexure of the colon. In females, this reflex area most associated with this is the ovaries. I know from experience that many ovarian condition or menstrual problem is associated with this. I cannot help but wonder how many doctors think of the bowel when their patients complain of these troubles. And do you know, I see it time and time again, and this is another book of Dr. Jensen's too, called the Doctor Patient Handbook. And this is where he shows you, and see right there is the sigmoid flexure, and look right there, ovaries. Ovaries, pelvis, diaphragm, upper abdomen. And that is, when you look at right here on Dr. Jensen's chart that we got in class. Oops, I pushed the wrong button. Right here, let me move this over so everyone can see. See right there, that's the sigmoid flexure.
Yep.
And see right there, the diaphragm, upper abdomen, ovaries, even the spleen. And you have a weakness there in the spleen. And did you know that when you have a spleen weakness, you can have a tendency to over worry and have pensiveness?
Yeah.
And it's because of that weakness right there in the spleen. And see, it's because of the bowels again. Because if you look at your eyes, Destiny, what's very interesting, and this happens all the time with all my patients and people want readings from me. If you look, majority of your eyes, your weaknesses are all right there in the neural arch, like so many people's. And you do have a lot in the inside where your stomach area is, and you have more in your descending colon and your ascending colon. And that's very common too, because those areas are some of the bigger areas besides the transverse. Luckily you don't have too many up there in the transverse that are messing with your master glands too bad, because I see that a lot too. But you're not in a real bad situation up there. But not only is this a big weakness right there where your sigmoid flexure is, and then look at that big line that goes right there through your ovaries.
Yeah.
And see, that's your ovary zone. And then look at that big drug spot right there by it too. So that's affecting all that as well. And then one thing, I've showed your eye photographs to so many people, and you can see all these, look at all those dots. Those are all surface. That's all surface drug spots. They're real tiny. And that's all on the very, very surface. And you have to have very high resolution photography to see all that,
Yeah, I remember you showing me that when you took my photos, and I didn't even see that when I had my photos done at level 1.
Yeah, and
so that's great resolution.
Yeah, and so you can see how deep those weaknesses are, and you can see how they go all the way up. Dr. Jensen talked about that. He said when you can see them go all the way through the stomach zone, all the way, and then you can see it continue. So you see, that's why this is a perfect example of how you know when you have a neural arch weakness, is when you see it's connected up here and it goes all the way down into here. That's definitely neural arch, because this is connected to this. But he also did say too, though, if you see a weakness here and then you see a weakness down here, that's connected too. It's not in a direct connection, but he said
Yeah,
it's still in the same line with it, you know.
definitely.
Yeah. He even
Lymphatic congestion on top of it, you probably can't see all of it.
exactly, especially like look right here. That's all. This is the
Yeah,
part that Dr. Jensen taught us in class. He said when you see that heavy lymphatic congestion around that weakness, that's all. This is all heavy lymphatic congestion on this area, around that area, and that
yeah.
is. Let's see. Let me refresh my memory for us both. That is. This is the left eye. That's the pelvis, the
Pelvic.
pelvis area,
Yeah,
yeah, pelvic zone, and then that's the right there by on top of the pelvis, and right there by the ovaries. That's diaphragm, upper abdomen. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right beside the ovaries. The ovaries are right there, but
yeah,
that weakness right
yeah,
there could be affecting the ovaries too because it's so close. That's what I was talking about before about how when things are so close to each other,
yeah.
you know. Yeah, yeah. And then yeah,
Absolutely.
and then see there's the spleen, and then see all that right there. That's the spleen part of the spleen, and then also this could be affecting the
Diaphragm too.
spleen too. You know, yeah, because anything out that
Yeah.
far could still, you know. But yeah, all right, and then yeah, we'll keep going through it. But that's
Well,
the
and to bring a little
go ahead.
insider depth into, the whole
Okay.
ovary area. I started my menstrual cycle late.
Mm-hmm.
I was almost 14 by the time I started my menstrual cycle, and I maybe for the first 2 years only had 3 to 4 cycles per year. So it was
Okay.
never consistent. I got on birth control for 4 months, and obviously, and that's why I'm always so surprised about all the drug spots in my eyes. Like, never done any drugs, smoked a little weed, but like
Mm-hmm.
I've never done any drugs. So
Did you?
obviously all the sulfurs from, I used to have ear infections when I
Yeah.
was a child. My mom, thank goodness, didn't, take us to the doctor all the time. I'm so glad she didn't. But they wanted to put tubes in my ears and she wouldn't let them. And they wanted to take my tonsils out and she wouldn't let them. So I'm
Oh,
glad.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was on antibiotics, amoxicillin, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I
That's.
definitely have all the sulfur from that. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as far as, I took some migraine medicine when I was 17, 18, and maybe had some Midol in there too for my cramping and everything that was severe. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, I haven't had any surgeries. I was in the
That's
NICU for
good.
10 days when I was born, but other than that, I haven't had that many drugs. So I'm sure that, those are definitely iodine deposits.
Well, they also could be inherited. It could be something your mom had to take while
Sure.
was carrying you in her womb. You know, because some of these, like, see, some of them they're so dark like that. That could have
Mm-hmm.
been there for a while. You know, and
They could definitely be chemical deposits. I mean, my mom
that too.
smoked cigarettes with me when she was pregnant,
See,
and
there you
after I was
go.
born, when I came home from the NICU from lung problems, I aspirated amniotic fluid when I was born.
Wow, wow,
So
yeah.
I mean, they could be from vaccinations too.
Yeah, that's possible too. Well, see, some of these they're up here in that bowel area. That's in your
Yeah.
bowels, but these in other areas, it's no telling what it is. But but overall, I mean, overall, all your outside areas are great. And so and the main thing too for everyone watching, including yourself, like we learned at Dr. Morse's class, is your autonomic nerve wreath is not real pronounced, and so you don't have a lot of irritation going on in your nervous system, and you don't have a lot of irritation going on in your bowel wall. You know, because I mean, some of these areas you can see some raised fibers. See all that,
Mm-hmm.
and those raised
Yep.
fibers. You know, you can see that right there in that heart zone area, and right in there and stuff. And that's your shoulder. That's right above your heart zone. And see, that's very common because a lot of people, you know, even ladies more than men, they have the fibromyalgia and stuff like that between their shoulder
Mm-hmm.
blades. And not only the acids draining from our head, but that's coming from the bowel again. Because you see how all of that is right in the bowel wall there.
Yeah.
And overall speaking, now that area, you could have just a little bit of ballooning right there where it's bulging out right there on the descending
Mm-hmm.
colon. But also too, right in that middle area, that's the splenic flexure. That's the other flexure at the top of the
Right.
the left side of your transverse colon, where it bends over and goes down to the descending, Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not, that's not that bad there. The only one that was chronic was right there. Your other one in your right eye was not that bad either, And I've seen a lot of people though, that they have them worse in those areas because that affects their ears. Did you know that's the biggest area that's affected by those two splenic flexures is the ear and the mastoid? The mastoid is right underneath the ear, Yeah. And that's why a lot of people too will have ear infections and so easy from a young kid, But okay, we'll keep going with it because we have a lot more to cover, I can talk about this stuff for hours with people. I've some of these calls, or they usually last between an hour to 2 hours, but sometimes they go a little longer because people have a lot of questions, and some people's eyes are really more complex than others, But yeah, okay, all right. And then this is just a good example of Dr. Morse talking about the four systems of in our body, and he shows you more like what the pancreas helps with the blood and the gallbladder, and lymphatically, and then the absorption, lymphatic condition or interstitially, adrenal and parathyroid glands, the utilization, bowels, and a kidney and skin, So he shows you how the bowels help with the digestion, elimination, the kidneys, the cellular, and the skin is cellular, So yeah, but I think I think bowels will get out some of the cellular too, because it's another one of the big open channels, because I think it's different for everybody. But I do know what Dr. Morse is saying. He's saying predominantly the digestion doesn't go through the kidneys or the skin. It just goes, the cellular just goes through there, like the lymphatic. But I think it's kind of like when the body finds a channel of elimination open that it can go through, I think it's going to try to get out any waste it can. Because that's why I think you'll see some old digestive matter coming out the skin, and we see all the pus and stuff from dairy products, because the body's got to use any channel it can sometimes to get it out, And then your absorption wasn't real bad. Your small intestine's only on the left side, but they weren't that bad, not as bad as the descending, and the ascending colon area, but they're still not that bad. Like I said, some of your weaknesses aren't as big. Like I love to show other people other examples of other people, and I don't know if you remembered Andrea Cohen, I think her name was. She was in the class. She was another class member. She was the first one that reached out to me, and she was like, Thad, I want you, or no, excuse me, I said her name wrong. Andrea Carson. Yeah, and she reached out to me, and she said, Thad, I want you to give me a reading for my daughter that was there at the class, and she got her eyes taken and pictures of. And she said, because she's only 22 years old, and she's got, see, look how her eyes are. And she's got major.
That's her daughter's eyes.
That's her daughter's eyes.
Brie,
and see, Bria. That's right. Yeah. And she, so she was the one that got me thinking about this whole doing a Zoom call, and I thought it was a really good idea, but yeah, she just has really massive. And look at her lymph nodes. These are all her lymph nodes out here. But and then look at right there. That's a major hypothalamus weakness, right in the. But everything, all this is neural arch again, majorly neural arch. And being only 22 years old, I felt so bad for her because she was having a lot of challenges, lots of challenges, And then another one of my clients that I went by her house and took pictures of her and her friend's daughter on the way back home from the class. And I want you to see this little 6-year-old, and then we'll get back to your eyes, and I want everyone else to see it too. But this is a 6-year-old's eye, and it's just so sad. Look how spread out her fibers are, and and just that big, huge weakness right in there. I'm pretty sure that's her thyroid. Because that's on her inside. Yeah, your thyroid is both on the inside, and then your lungs are on the outside of your eyes. I'm starting to do like Dr. Morse, where I can almost not even look at my charts and I can tell you where it is because I have it more memorized. It's just repetition, like anything else, Yeah. All right. Now we'll keep going. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Yeah. Then endocrine system. All right. Let's talk about this, and I'll show you where all these things are, and I'll show you the ones that just look more than these other ones. But everything, that's something else for everyone to remember. The endocrine system or the glandular system, they're like sponges. And Dr. Jensen, he talked about that. He said the thyroid and the parathyroid are the two most easy organs or glands to get as toxic as the bowels, from that neural arch connection. And he talked about how that those are some of the ones you really want to focus on, because if your metabolism's slow, then everything is slow, your healing and everything, and so he talked about really helping to get the glands cleaned out. That's such an important thing. And I see that all the time too, because again, just for everyone watching and yourself, if you look, because I didn't show this earlier when we were talking about the neural arch, if you look, the neural arch is right here where the autonomic nervous system and the autonomic nerve wreath is right there, that white area. Right behind it is the stomach, the bowels, and then right behind it is the stomach. Well, look, see how the gallbladder's right there on the neural arch, the pancreas, the adrenals, the urinary tract, the prostate, the bladder, the parathyroid, the bronchus, the bronchioles, the thyroid. I see the bronchos. Yeah, the pituitary, the pineal, the hypothalamus, all of those things. And then, of course, the shoulders, like I was telling you about, so many things.
Yeah.
And the same thing over here. And then look at the heart. The heart's actually laying on that area, And then the adrenals and the urinary tract and prostate in the left eye can be affected from the rectum, from the drainage, because see, the rectum goes right between those two. And so I'll see those two sometimes. There'll be big weakness in this area from all of the acid congestion going through the body in those areas, And then definitely the bladder, because Dr. Jensen talked about the urinary tract and the bladder can be really weakened, because when the body sometimes gets have like leaky gut syndrome, it gets into the blood, and then the blood has to cycle it back through the body a second time, and it can cause even more burden on those organs, because they have it hit them twice, really, as they say, But okay, all right, keep going. Oh yeah, I was going to show you. Let's start with the right eye. All right. See, in this eye, well, no, I take that back, and because I wasn't looking at it. This eye, you do have a chronic. See, that's your ear and area over there in your right eye. That is, I was wrong. It is chronic in your hepatic joint, because all those weaknesses right there. That's your mastoid in your ear, and your medulla is right beside it. All of that area, in the right eye. And then in this one, talking about their things. All right.
I lost my hearing right before level 2 started last year.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense, because you were probably stirring up all the acids and stuff, and you can have temporary loss of stuff like that, and then it'll come back, Yeah.
I was on 10 weeks of watermelons, and as soon as I came watermelons, I went into hearing loss, and it just progressed
crazy.
Slowly, and
that's crazy.
Everybody's all concerned about me. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's just a healing crisis.
Yeah, and then it came back, and probably came back stronger, Yeah, and then
then my daughter broke my arm, and then I immediately got my hearing back in 3 days. It was the most
wow.
My body just turned that off.
That's crazy. That's
probably
crazy.
From stress, but
yeah. Well, there's your parathyroid right there, and then your thyroid looks pretty good. It's it's a little bit influenced. Hold on, let me change something. It's a little bit influenced from this neural arch weakness that starts down here in your stomach and goes through there, but it's not that bad in this eye. But this is all affecting your parathyroid, but it's not real bad, of course. And then this is the area of your pituitary, and this is your pineal, and then your hypothalamus there, right at the base of the animation life. Then it's also right there in the ego pressure, and it's also right there in the inherent mental. So all those little neural arch weaknesses, but they're not that major, And then the adrenals, though, see, the adrenals is right there, and it's not that bad on this eye. But if you look, if we zoom in, this is something very interesting for you to see. It starts up here in the neural arch, but then see how it goes all the way down here, and then that's all your kidney. See, and that's chronic because it's so big again. That's your kidney. But it's nothing real bad because it's not real deep into the fibers of the iris. So it's not it's overall chronic only because it's so big. But if that was smaller, I wouldn't even say it's chronic because it's not that deep of weakness. It's not like this, But you can still see because overall how big it is, And then let's see. Yeah, and then this was that area I was saying. That's the ear, the neck, the mastoid, the medulla, all of that, And that's definitely the hepatic flexure, because all those are neural arch, you know, definitely. And then shoulder, you know, and then this is bronchals, and the bronchus over there, you know, all that. And that's mid back. You could have some aches and pains in your mid back. Peritoneum wall, or peritoneum abdominal wall. That's right there where your appendix is. That could be affecting your appendix a little bit. Nothing real major though. That's your vagina area. That's your vagina area down there.
Yeah.
And you know, and then let's see. That's pretty much all in that. Let's see what that is. Oh yeah, that's the liver I was telling you about earlier. You know, and then that's a little bit of the breast area, but it's nothing major. You know, it's just subacute. You know. And then it's a little bit of the pleuria. And then these areas over here, that could be affecting your lungs. So you have several interesting weaknesses around the outside area where your skin is, and also where the lymphatic system in the skin, not the lymph, you know, it's because Dr. Jensen talked about it some, but Dr. Morse doesn't really talk about it, about how the zones of the iris, how, you know, this is the stomach zone, this is the bowel zone, and then right after that, I forgot what some of these other ones are, but I remember the ones on the outside. It's skin, and then it's lymphatic on the outside, but it's mostly in the skin, lymphatics. Where I get that from is Dr. Ellen Jensen. I showed this chart to Dr. Morse in class, but, and of course, there was lots of it he disagreed with, but Ellen Jensen did copy one thing that was from Dr. Jensen's original chart, but he doesn't have it in his, that one chart, is she did copy these zones. And see, it's skin, superficial lymph and blood. That's what the zone is right outside of the skin. It's that blue zone right there. And then it goes to body structure, muscular, blood, and lymph. See, that's the blood and lymph of the whole body. It's right there on the outside of the autonomic nerve reed. So see, that's the blood and lymph zone. So see, that makes perfect sense too, now that I think about it, because that's some of the most weakest and congested areas, is right there on that borderline where all those neural arch weaknesses are at. And so that makes perfect sense. That's where you see most of the congestion of lymphatic fluids. So that's why I think when you see those similarities, that some of these things are accurate. It's just maybe Dr. Morse just wants to keep it so simplified. He doesn't want to confuse people, you know. So I can kind of see the reason why that both of them use this information in different ways, you know. So that's where I kind of say, pick and choose the information you use that resonates with you, that it can show over time that it can be actually accurate. And that's what I like to see, is let the people's experience show you how accurate it is. And so far, this information I've been sharing with people about the neural arch and the relationship with the bowels, that's showing to be 100% accurate, you know, because people are having just too many signs that's lining it up and showing this really accurate. All right, now in your left eye, I'll show you some of these things, because I did have some stuff I wanted to show you, you know. You do have right here, see that? That's the thyroid. It starts in your bronchus area, of course, but that could be affecting your thyroid some. So that's only one of the areas that it could be affecting. This is your pharynx. See that little spot out there again in that superficial? You know, that's the pharynx, you know, around your tonsils and your larynx.
Yep.
And then there's the pineal.
Lost my voice a couple times too.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what's amazing about iridology. See, I didn't know that. You know, that just tells you what I see in the eyes. You know, that's what I was talking about earlier. Is I love to let the eyes let me know. I've been very fascinated with it. I gave a man a reading one day, and he was testing me because he wanted to see how accurate it was. Because I told him it's that accurate, and he was like, "Okay, I'm not going to tell you nothing about myself. I want to see what your eyes tell me." He was sitting there listening, and I looked at his eyes, because I was doing it at my mom's health food store, and I had a big screen, you know, a big monitor, and I blew up these eyes because I took his pictures too, and I blew his eyes up real big, and I was taking my transparency, and I said, "You got a major weakness in your left kneecap." And he waited till the end, and he said, "Dad, that was so amazing you said that. A couple of years ago, I had a chainsaw accident, and see the big scar across my kneecap?" I was like, "Well, there it is in your eyes, you know." And then he was the same story that he told me. I said, "You have a major lung weakness in your upper lungs." And he said, "Well, that's one I'm puzzled about, that I don't know if you got that right or not." And he said, "Because I'm not a smoker. I've never been a smoker, never been around people that smoke. I've never had problems with bronchitis because I never liked dairy because I was so allergic to it and stuff like that." And so he said, "I'm not sure what could have caused that." And I said, "Well, you know, there's also an emotional connection, that something emotionally tragic could have affected your lungs." Because I said, "You know what the emotional weakness that you can have in your lungs from that could be hurting them is from a loss, like a loss or a depression, or
Yeah.
major stress or anxiety. And when I said that, his eyes got big. He said, yeah, that a couple years ago, I lost my son. He committed suicide over a girl. And he said it broke him down so hard, they lost the will to
Yeah.
live. And I said, that's where your lung weakness come from. And he was like, wow, it makes perfect sense. And I said, that's because it makes, when people have extreme anxiety, they breathe too shallow, or either they hold their breath. And that's why it's so important to do deep breathing exercises. So important. But okay, we'll keep going. And that's what I love about iridology, because I want people to surprise me. I want to see these things, and then I don't know what they're from, but then I want you to later be like, "My eyes told you that," Yeah. And then that's your pituitary, but it's right there by the pineal. It's not nothing real big. I'm just pointing some of these things out. That's an equilibrium dizziness area. You could have some problems with dizziness, and
I do.
yeah, and then that's an inherent mental weakness again. That could be your hypothalamus again. And then let's see. Yeah, and this was the shoulder I was telling you about, neck and shoulder. Yeah, that's the heart, the bronchioles again. That's the around in the thorax or the chest. This is, of course, I go talk about this between the spleen and the diaphragm, upper abdomen. That's ovaries. I were talking about ovary and pelvis weakness right there. And then over here, that's kidney and kidney.
Yeah.
And then this is adrenals. That's your chronic adrenals in this eye. Then that's your vagina area again. And see, they're right between this rectum area I was just telling you about. See that? And then your urinary tract is not real bad, but you do have a little weakness up here that could be affecting your bladder. That's, again, coming from the neural arch area, like most of these things are. And then that's your upper back. You could have a little bit of a chronic weakness right there in your upper back. And then most of these other things out here, like the scapula, the esophagus, vocal cords, most of those things, that drug spot's around the thorax again, and pleura. The breast wasn't too bad, except for that little weakness right in there. It's just subacute, So, most of these, you don't have, like I said, compared to some people, your stuff is just all, pretty minor. It's nothing real major, but it just still kind of shows you what you could be going through sometimes, and different feelings and sensations you're feeling in certain areas, Yeah. And then, all right, let's keep going. All right, that pretty much covers all of that. We just went over all that in pretty much, except for the thymus. But the thymus, remember, Dr. Morse talked about, that's questionable, because I even asked him about that. And he said, well, I'm not sure if that's right where Dr. Jensen had it. And I was like, okay, because I didn't know. But I still put it on there because I'm only going by the information I have. And so, if I see it there, I say it's still a possibility.
Yeah. And I have thyroid problems.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yep.
Well, that may make sense, because the left eye, and you may have more of an issue on the left side of your thyroid. Because remember, I told this to my client earlier, iridology is so amazing. Iridology is the only test or science that will show you could have a hypo condition in your thyroid on your right side and a hyper condition on your left side. And that's very possible what you have. You have a hypo condition on your left because you have a bigger weakness there, and you only have not really a major weakness at all in your right side. So, and the only way you can tell that is by iridology, because if you get a test from the doctor, it won't tell you that, because they just test the levels of your blood, They can't see into the iris fibers. And also for everyone watching, every single one of your neurological fibers is connected to the fibers in your eye. That's amazing, because he said every fiber has 28,000 minute fibers. And it's like, wow, it's just so amazing. God definitely made us a very, very intelligently designed. I mean, more than we even possibly can imagine. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And then the medulla, we talked about all this. This is just a good breakdown of of your brain flares. And see, most of them are very, you don't have many of them that are major. And just for everyone, and what I will do for you, the same as I do with all my clients, is I have some of these PDFs that I put together that explains these things. And see, I copy this in my symptoms chart, where it's all of this comes from Dr. Jensen's book, and it gives you all the symptoms that you could experience, whether it's in the acute or subacute or hyper condition. And then this is the hypo condition, but it's also chronic and degenerative. Now, Dr. Morse said on one of his videos one time, he said, if you're in the acute or subacute, you could experience some hypo conditions. But he said, once you're in the chronic or degenerative, you will only experience hypo. He said, over here, you could experience some hyper and hypo, But I have had some people, though, still, even if they're over here, they'll still feel some of these symptoms too, But yeah, you can go through here and you can read all of these. And then
Yeah, that's
also,
great that you put all that together.
exactly, it makes it where it keeps people from asking as many questions, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that way they can read it much more detail and I can tell them anyways. And then down here below the glandular system is the nervous system and the brain flares. And this goes into it full detail, and you can like look at the name of what they're called and it'll tell you. And it even tells you on some of them, see the sex impulse is part of the hypothalamus pituitary, and it tells you where they're at, you know. And so, and see the inherent mental is one of your major areas of your hypothalamus too, you know. So yeah, that's why I put that together. And then the terminology chart that I also send out to people, it's given like the markings in the iris. See, that's what a bowel pocketing looks like, you know, or diverticulum. And so you can definitely tell that's what you have some of, it looks like. And then you don't have any, which is great. I don't see any prolapsing. That's great because sometimes women and sometimes people have that because of weak parathyroid and also gravity. Gravity pushes down on our body, especially makes things sag, you know. And that's why they say doing the inversion table or handstands. You know, my girlfriend likes to do handstands a lot, you know, and stuff.
Yeah.
And then
we have a yoga swing for inversion.
Great. And you could have a little bit of ballooning, just a little bit in those areas I was telling you about in your ascending and descending, but it's nothing major, you know. And you don't have any spastic. What that means is when your nervous system is irritated in the autonomic nerve wreath, that's the way it'll look. And I see that in some people, but not you definitely. You know? And then I don't see any stincture. I don't see any of these other things. But then also, that's where I got the picture of the Constitution. And then I took some of the pictures from the book. They didn't show up real clear, but pretty good. And it just explains these different conditions that people can have. So it's good to explain. And then this shows people how it looks when it goes through real deep layers of the fibers of the iris. And then that's what it shows when it's in the hyper or irritated. And you do have a few areas that's still in that stage, but that's good because that's in the beginning stages, you know. Yeah. All right. We'll keep going. Yeah. And you just keep asking questions if you have any as we go, you know. All right.
You never cease to impress me, Thad. That's
No
great that
problem.
you put both of those PDFs together.
Yeah, well, that is one that I did, but also let me show you this one while I have you talking about it. This is another one that I made that Kaylee helped me put together. Now this one comes from a lot of stuff I got from Dr. Morse again. This is what he had and that he sends out with his readings.
Yeah.
It's giving you a breakdown. What is iridology? What is the neuro-optic analysis? You know, you may have seen this some when you got a reading from me too. Lymphatic stagnation. You know, what's your neuro-optic, the history of it, the cellular strengths, the lymphatic stagnation, acidosis versus toxicity.
Yeah.
And then he goes down genetics, understanding your iris analysis. Then he talks about this, the acute. These are actually the same pictures from his too. Subacute, all of this. And then at the very bottom, like I do with everything, see, please note all the above information was written by Dr. Morris, you know. You know, that way I give credit where credit's due, you know. Yeah. Because I know he's told us before. He don't mind us sharing his information as long as we just give him credit for it, you know, because I don't want anyone to claim that I'm plagiarizing anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's good to share people's information. And I would feel honored if people shared my information like that, you know. Now, I understand. I'm not trying to make a book and sell it like that. No, but just helping my clients to better understand. That's just we all sharing information, you know. But, yeah. And then this talks about the hepatic flexure and all those. And and then I talk about you possibly have some small bowel, you know, like I told you. This is just in more details for your records, you know, shows you those things. And then we get in the lymphatic system. And then, yeah, your kidneys are pretty good except for this one. It was in the chronic. And then this one just had a drug spot there. It could be affecting it. But all this other stuff, not bad, you know, but they're still all affected by the neural arch, of course, you know. And then the lymphatic fluids, yeah, they're more chronic because they're more brown color. If they wasn't so brownish / orange, then they wouldn't be. But they're kind of borderline. And see, sometimes I can't click in between, so I have to pick a side. You know, and that's what Dr. Morse talks about too. You have to. That's the ability of the iridologist to just make a reading based on what they see. You know, because you know we all see things a little different than others. You know. Yeah. And then the skin, it's kind of, your skin was borderline. I couldn't tell if it was like you had major, because they're nothing big. You can even tell when I don't zoom in. So you can see a little bit of a skin ring, but some of it I think is those little weaknesses you have out there in that skin and the lymphatic system of the skin. So It's definitely possible, but it's nothing really, really major. You know what I mean? It's not as bad as some people. Some people's you can see it from just even looking them in the eye, you know? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then we talked about the heart and the spleen. So we talked about both of those. And then the nervous system, we talked about all of that. And I seen a little bit of stress rings, nothing major, you know. And then your head. This is just, now we're getting into the part of the reading where it just goes into more detail in all the specific areas. Because I love to, reason why I went into so much detail is that I like to, every little weakness I see, I like to explain to people what it is. So they don't come back and they say, well, Thad, what about this area over here? You didn't ever mention what this area weakness is. You know what I mean? And so that's why I went through the whole chart and I made sure I had it on my reading so I could tell people what I see in those areas, even if it's just acute, just because I want people to kind of see I didn't leave anything out. And then at least it's good records for them and they can keep going back and looking and seeing in those areas what I said. Because Dr. Morse, I know he does keep a little bit more simplified and he doesn't go into so much detail, but I kind of like to do that because I have some people that have told me they really find it a good value because they love to see all those details sometimes. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting that you marked my nose as chronic as well.
Yeah, do you see
right.
some issues in there? Or no? Yeah,
Well,
on the right. Left side.
I don't feel like I had sinuses that much or any issues when I was younger or in my adult life. But just through detoxing, I've had major nasal polyps.
Wow.
That on both sides that would fill my entire nasal passage.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, look right here, and I'll show it to you. And I'll show you the reason why I said that. And see this area right over here? You know, that whole area? It's nothing really big. I mean, it's borderline. It's another one of them borderline ones. It's like really a borderline between subacute and chronic. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of like, because all of these weaknesses down here too, I took it all into consideration how big it was. But it's nothing as bad as this. That's straight up chronic. So really this is like a borderline between sub and chronic. So I just had, again, I had to pick a side, you know. Yeah. But you could tell how all of this could be affecting it. And then also too, all of this, how it was darker, you know, darker up in here. I took that in consideration too, because sometimes you have to do that. You have to look at the whole area and just put all that together. Because if all I seen
that
was
would have been lighter, then you probably would have went with subacute.
Exactly. If this is all I seen and then this was all this color right here, I would have just said subacute. But with it being darker like this, like for example, even though I don't see any of these big weaknesses right here, I still call this subacute and not acute. See this right here, that's acute. That's all acute because that's so light. You don't see anything dark. But this over here, that's more subacute. But then if you see a weakness like that with this, then that's definitely chronic because you put both of them together. And that kind of helps you to have more. And then especially if you see something like this, anytime you see the fibers spread out like that, that's definitely a more of a chronic weakness because it's showing you it's going deeper into the fibers. Now, if it's just on the surface, like a lot of this is just on the surface, that's just surface trash. So that's not affecting your weakness of your eyes too bad. Or I mean, your genetics. All of this stuff, that's genetic because how deep it goes, but it's still not so deep that it's, you know, degenerative or anything. But yeah, it's very interesting. And I'm learning every day more and more because I'm learning through reading and studying and just looking into it more deep and also seeing by their correlation. See, I definitely see how iridology has come a long ways because people have been able to correlate when people said they have certain weaknesses in certain areas. Then when you go look at their eyes and you look at their health questionnaire, you can keep seeing the similarities in so many different clients. You know, I mean, I keep all my photographs and see I have folders and folders of photographs and this is just one folder, you know, and I have to even have a hard drive to back everyone's stuff up, you know, and then see here's all the readings, you know, from everyone, you know, and that's just the ones I've done since I went to this format. You know, before that I was doing real basic. I was doing real basic back when I first started in notes, you know, see them all right here and they just look like this, you know what I mean? And that's the way it looks when you get it from Dr. Morse. But then Kaylee helped me to put it in a PDF so it looked better, you know, because his was a little bit, you know, it was kind of, it was like it was a copy and you couldn't see it as easy, you know. And then see, there's all of his stuff again. And then this was how I wrote it out originally. And it wasn't as easy for people to follow and read. And And so we made it. We come a long way with it, and I'm very happy with how she helped me put it together like we have. Yeah,
You
I
guys are
think
doing
it.
amazing.
I
Yeah,
think it's a good improvement, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, and the respiratory system. Yeah, I all the time see people have issues with
Yep.
their bronchioles and their bronchus and even their lungs because of the association of just not only stress and breathing too shallow, but just different things we eat and also different air we breathe in different locations and different jobs we have to work around, people that smoke, different neural toxins that we breathe in, like the
Mhm.
chemicals and the perfumes and all these things, so you see
Oh
it all
yeah.
the time with people, you really do.
Yeah, my lungs have been
Detoxing some?
terrible probably since, conception. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And also another thing I thought to ask you sometime, Destiny,
yeah.
is have you guys with your tattoo shop, have y'all looked into some of the healthier forms of ink? The ones that don't leave us behind as much, possible heavy metals and residues? Because they're making some that are healthier now, from what I understand.
Well, 90% of the inks that we use and mostly that Roger uses are Eternal Ink, which is a brand, and they're all vegan based.
Good,
Um,
good,
yeah, they're all plant dyes and everything.
good,
So
good.
obviously there's still some chemicals in
Oh
there,
yeah.
but there's some harsh inks out there. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
some people are tattooing with, you know, drawing ink that has
Yeah.
lead in it, and
Yeah. That's the ones I heard that were the worst, is the kind
yeah,
that had heavy metals in it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it all comes back to, trusting a good artist and
Exactly. Well, that's why I knew that
asking them
you
if they even
guys.
take that into consideration. So,
Exactly. And that's why I knew you guys were doing that, because you probably
hmm
understood about how the skin and the lymphatic system are so
yeah,
connected, and how that, you want to be careful, because all that is going to absorb into your lymphatic system, and then you just got to detox it out later.
definitely.
And
I've seen lymph nodes of people that were heavily tattooed that their lymph nodes were removed, and there was just black ink all in their lymph node.
yeah, I know. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. And
But in some artists, they want to use a black ink so that ink
yeah,
stays black, and they don't care what ingredients are in it. They just want that
yeah.
tattoo to look good. And
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
so,
that's why I say that I think we can find a middle ground for those people that like the art. You can find a middle
mhm,
ground and use something that's going to be the least harmful for your body, because you're going to keep it around for a while. And
yeah,
and that way that you don't sacrifice beauty and vanity over your health. And of course,
definitely.
I can respect people's choices for what they want to do with their bodies, but I
Mhm.
think we need to spread the awareness so that people that are unaware, they can know a difference. Because some people, they would rather take the healthier option if they knew it was available, or if they knew the difference. So that's why I think
Definitely.
it's good for us to put it out there for people, so that they don't look back and say, well, I wish I'd have known. Because like I wish my mom and dad had known about the tonsil thing, because they had mine taken out, and they
Oh
just
no.
didn't know any better. Yeah. But
Oh, I hate to hear that.
yeah,
Maybe you can regenerate them.
I know, that's what I was hoping too. Yeah. But then we talked about the ovary, and that, and then I talked about the vagina, and then the
Yeah.
peritoneum, abdominal wall. All of that makes sense, of course, because the congestion in your bowels and things like that, and the bowel wall and the pelvis and all those areas. And then the skeletal system. You had a little bit of weakness in your mid back and upper back on the left side,
hmm
but that's very common too. Most of the people, they're over here, with most all of their back and their area, because again the back is so affected from so many different things. Of course.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was in a small little car accident when I was
Oh,
17.
okay. That makes sense too. Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
also too, the bones can be weakened from just the body
they're
sucking
absolutely.
calcium out of the bones. Yeah.
hmm
And then this is just a basic overview, and I give people the understanding that please note that most of the areas in the red are from the neural arch. That way that people won't see that in red and be like, "Oh my gosh, Dad!" I mean, before I put that warning in there, people would call me back or message me back and be like, "Dad, am I in danger of having a heart attack?" And I'm like, "No, that's just saying your bowels could be putting some stress on your heart and those other organs." And that all that means is that if you work on mostly the bowels, it will help that organ to drastically to get better But then later you might want to take a formula or something to help support the heart and help it to cleanse a little bit better, because it may have gotten a little dirty from the condition of the bowels. And once people
Absolutely.
see that association, then they
Mhm.
know that it's kind of like, don't chase your tail around and go after the symptoms. Go after the
Right.
root cause. And then that way that people aren't frustrated. Because Dr. Jensen even taught, I'll share this story with you, and then for others who are listening, he talked about this lady that she came to see him because he was a chiropractor, number one. He followed in his dad's footsteps. And then it led him to iridology, and then he found his true calling. But he never forgot his roots of iridology. And he had this lady that came to see him one time, and she was holding her neck at a weird angle, and he asked her if she wanted him to adjust it, and she said no, because they've already had 3 people that have adjusted it. It didn't help. It only made it worse. And he said, well, okay, I understand the neural arch. Have you had problems with your bowels lately? And she said, yeah, for years. He said, have you had problems with them recently when your neck got bad? She said, actually, I have. And he said, well, okay, I
Yeah.
want you to do some enemas. And she said she did 3 of them before she left, and her neck straightened up after the 3rd one. That fast. Yeah,
Yeah.
just because something had been irritating her bowels, and it was enough to make her neck it like that, you know. So, I mean, it's very interesting how, again, the body is holistic. We got it. When we work on one thing, we work on everything. And that's what we
Absolutely.
all are, is we're holistic healers. We go after every aspect of our health, of our lives, and all of our bodies, spirit, mind, everything, you know, as Dr. Morse says, you know. So that's what makes it very interesting. But yeah,
And
and then
that's very important.
yeah, it's very important, you know.
Strengthen the foundations and everything else will follow suit too.
That's right. That's right. Most definitely. Well, I think a lot of times, just like Dr. Moore says, people don't put enough emphasis on us being a spirit having a human experience. And we have to remember that, because we identify too much with this experience of living in a human body, and we start to forget
Mhm.
that we're a spirit, and we think more that we're a human. And we put too much focus on the vanity and the way we look, instead of remembering your true beauty comes from within. And the more that you let that shine out, it doesn't really matter so much what you look like. They'll
Yep.
notice your glow and your personality, and they'll be like, wow, I'm not even really focused on what you look at. It's your energy. It's the way you talk, the way you, because I have people all the time that they're
Absolutely.
like, Thad, I just feel better when I talk to you on the phone because of the way that you talk to people. And I'm like, well, that's because I do so much inner work on trying to love myself and love this life and have lots of gratitude to God and source, and just appreciate that I have this opportunity to live this way. And by doing that, I've learned that you love him, number one, and forgiving you the life you have, and then love yourself, number two, and then you can give out love to everything. And then you can start to just say that, hey, I'm happy if all I got to spend time was with just myself. But then when I get to have all these other people in my life, that's just a bonus. You know, and because so many people, they rely on others to fill up their love tank when they don't realize it all starts with you, you know, and your relationship with yourself, because you can't give out what you don't have. And so many times people end up feeling empty because they're relying on other people to make them feel happy, and or their job or their career or something like that, when it
Yep.
all comes from within. It's internal, you know. And it's just like Dr. Morse and all these greats, they talk about what you search for is always inside, you know, internally.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and it's helping people to remember these simple things that we're not taught enough of when we're young kids. We're taught too much stuff that just programs us for the matrix and stuff like that, you know. But
That's why
yeah,
I homeschool my children.
there you go. There you go. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the conclusion here, this is just a basic conclusion that just goes over things that pretty much you've already been working on. And then that's just, you know, just real basic, because I didn't have to go into a lot of stuff, you know, for you, because you're already on the journey. It's just I'm showing people what it looks like, you know. But
Mhm.
now we're into the part where, you know, do you have any questions about anything or anything like that?
Um, I mean, as far as have you, even Dr. Morse said in my audio analysis that he gave me in level 1, I was surprised to hear that he said that he hadn't seen so much sulfur spread out through the entire iris
That's what
before.
that's what I was saying too, and that it was very interesting. Is that I, you know, and see, I know Dr. Morse, when you told me, you said that it was hard with their cameras because they may have, you know, they may
Too
have
much light on it.
overexposed it or used the wrong
Yes.
color light. But I agree. It's very interesting why it goes out so far to the edge, because most people, you see it's just around the inside.
Mhm.
like, and then sometimes you see this, like I'll show you another one of my clients' eye photographs that it gives you a good example, because she was on antibiotics for 2 years straight on an intravenous drip. And
Oh, gee.
and see, she has blue eyes, but see how it's all right there around her bow wall again, the neural arch
Uh-huh.
area. But see how it's coming out down to her lymph nodes, and that's the way
Yep.
it's supposed to do, you know. And then so you can see it down in her lymph node areas, and it's trailing down there like it's draining, you know. And so you see that sometimes. But now to see your eyes, it just
Right.
looks like it's taken over most all of your
Yeah.
iris fibers, you know. And yeah, I don't see that many times. I have seen it a couple other times with people, but it's just, it is very puzzling why it's, you don't see more areas of blue coming through. You know, I was trying to see if I could think of another person that could give you an example of someone.
Hmm.
Um, Now I have
I
seen,
mean,
like, I'll show you another example. Right, go ahead and ask your question while I find the picture.
I can't recall. I lost my mom 10 years ago, so I wish, like going through this, that I could relate back to her and let her pull some insight as well. It's like into my childhood and etc.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I don't know when I started taking antibiotics for my ear infections. But I
Mhm.
know that I was
Well,
on them on a regular basis for at least 6, maybe 8 years. I'm not certain.
Well, also remember, that's very possible what you're saying there, but also remember too, sulfur medications are used to suppress
Yeah.
symptoms from coming to the surface. Like a lot of
Yeah.
skin disorders, that's why I give it a lot to eczema people, or eczema.
Mhm.
Eczema is actually a better way to pronounce it. Um,
Yeah.
Eczema and psoriasis and dermatitis, and it's to suppress those symptoms from coming up in the skin. And also MSM, like MSM powder for joint problems, a lot of different things like that, they have sulfur in it, you know. But yeah, this is another person that they have a lot of sulfur, but then
Yeah.
you can still see
Yeah.
their blue around here, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then this was someone that, she was from Netherlands, and she was also like
How old was
22.
that previous lady that you just
I
married
don't
in?
I don't know how old she was. I don't
Okay.
remember. But this was from one of my clients from the Netherlands. That she had a lot of bad problems with. She had such bad dizziness. She said she felt like she was in an ocean the whole time. Even she said even
Wow.
watching me scrolling up and down on the video was making her
Yeah.
dizzy. You know? And
Really?
it was her and her mom. Yeah, that she reached out to me. She lived in around Amsterdam. But look at
Mm-hmm.
all the heavy congestion around her bowels and her neural
Yeah.
arch again. And
That's really dark.
yeah, and it's really dark, and it almost looks like a red color, but that's from sulfur as well. It's just, it's really degraded, but it could be a mixture of iodine too, you know. But
Uh-huh.
yeah. Now, one thing I did want to show you right quick, that just for the interesting look, that's something that I've only seen this one time, and I read it in Dr. Jensen's book before, but I've never heard Dr. Morse talk about this. And I wouldn't even tell somebody if I seen it, because I would be afraid to tell them, because I would think it would scare them too much. But I think I've actually found the only picture I've ever seen where I could see a tumor in someone's eye. You know,
Oh,
because
yeah.
Dr. Jensen talked about it. But
Yeah.
I don't know for a fact. That's why I would never bring it up unless I
Sure.
knew for a fact. Is he said, when you see a round circle like that, that's
Yeah.
dark black,
Yeah.
that could be a tumor, you know.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
again, I wouldn't tell someone that, because I wouldn't want
Yeah.
to scare them. I would just call it a drug spot, you know, because not unless it was important and valid. Like if they told me they possibly had problems with tumors or something, then I would have
Mhm.
to tell them in a nice way. It's not about holding the information back. It's just sometimes, you know, people identify too much with diagnosis. And if you tell them those things, then they'll think, oh, well,
Definitely.
I've got some kind of death sentence or something. When sometimes it's better to just not even tell them, just word it in a better way, that where they're not so scared. You know, like one day Kaylee, she looked at her own mother's eyes and she said, you got the arcarilis sinalis in the top part of your eye, means you could have some senility problems. And her
No.
mom's already close to 60, and she was like, what are you trying to say, I'm going senile? And I said, Kaylee, what you should have done, so you wouldn't have bothered her like that, is just say
Yeah.
she had poor circulation in her head area. Because that's all that means, is you got poor circulation in your head area. And see, this person has a little bit of that, because she's in her 60s and 70s too. And then she has some really congested lymph nodes, you know, around there, you know. But this was a perfect example of, she kept struggling and struggling to get a good eye photograph with a phone. And it was because, see how tiny her weaknesses are, you know? They're so
Yep.
tiny that it just would not show up with a phone, you know. So that's why she had to finally go to get someone that had a good camera for me to even be able to see it, you know. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you can look at her husband, and he has true brown eyes, definitely true brown eyes. I mean, this is 100% brown.
Mm-hmm.
But look at how serious, again, his neural arch weaknesses
Oh,
are
yeah.
everywhere. I mean, that's a lot to read right there, you know, but you can still go through it. But and some of those are
Yeah.
degenerative. But I still, again, I wouldn't call them degenerative because I've learned that some of that could just be shadows, you know. So I would still call them chronic because I don't know if it's the shadow or if it's really a degenerative weakness. Because again, when you say degenerative to some people, they're scared, you know. Yeah. And one thing I forgot to show you before I let you go, because I have my next client at 1:00, so I can talk to you just a few more minutes, and this would be interesting for other people to see, because I forgot to mention this in your report earlier, is that your malabsorption. So you have a little bit, see a little bit in these
Not a lot
areas.
there, but it's still there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still there a little bit in those little areas. This is in the left eye, you know. Now let's look at the right eye. So you have a little bit, but not as bad as, oh my gosh, I've had some of my clients that, and so you see a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more in this eye. See a little bit
Yep.
more up there, a little bit more in there. So that means that's one reason why I think, let's see if this correlates. Yeah, it is. This is the eye that you had the more chronic condition of the small intestines. And that
Yep.
makes sense because the malabsorption ring showing up too, you know. So
Definitely.
that makes sense completely, you know. Yeah, and you can see that sometimes. I even one lady, I told her, I said, you got a chronic neural arch weakness in your left ear. And she said, that's the exact same ear I've been having problems with. I'm like, well, that's the reason why, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
really interesting, you know. But and then one last thing I'll mention to you for you, just like on for the recording too, is that this
Yep.
was a photograph from the back of Dr. Jensen's book. And now
Yep.
I asked Dr. Morse about this, and he did not agree with the Herring law of cure about all cure starts from the head down in reverse order. But see, I told him though, and he didn't have anything to say about this, that Dr. Jensen talked about that sometimes that could be like emotions and the issues they're having in their head, not just the head weaknesses.
Sure.
And he didn't say nothing about that. He thought that he was talking about, you know, it drains from the head down or it goes from the head down, and he was talking about, no, it's more in his experience the lymphatic system and the kidneys, you know, of course. But I was talking about the reason why I've talked about this chart so much is that, listen to this brain thought that I had the other day that I was listening, or I was thinking about it, and I was like, that's really interesting, because a lot of people are confused about this. Is that, you know, the dark black arrows are the disease pathway. It's going worse and worse as the disease progresses, or the illness, you know. And then the red line is the reversal progress. It goes in reverse, you know, as you start to heal. Well, if you start, I'll zoom in on it so you can see it better. If you start over here in the acute and acute symptoms, it's elevated because all the tissues are irritated. They're real sensitive. And that's what it says here: inflammation, pain, sensitivity, fever, discharge, high activity. Well, then it goes into subacute, just below the surface. Low metabolism. See, they start to lose their
Mm-hmm.
metabolism because it's getting weaker, you know, and less pain. See, their pain's going away too, even though the condition's getting worse. And then
Right.
when it gets chronic, well below the surface, low metabolic activity, toxic buildup, low vitality. They're losing it even more. And then over here in the degenerative, no sensation. Well, see, that's what's confusing to some people. They will, when they keep getting worse and worse, eventually they'll lose their pain in that most chronic and degenerative zone. They'll still have some pain and inflammation around the outside area of that chronic and degenerative area, that will make them still feel pain in those areas, because it hasn't lost its sensation fully. But in the areas where it's the most chronic or degenerative, it's lost a lot of the sensation, so you don't feel it a lot there. And then also what Dr. Jensen talked about is you don't have very much pain receptors in your stomach, and I mean in your intestines. You do outside of that area, like your abdominal wall and all that, but you don't inside the
Mm-hmm.
intestines. That's why it's the same thing as your brain. And he said that's why we can have major weaknesses there and we don't even feel it sometimes until it gets really bad. And then that it will radiate out to the outside area. You know, that's why some people say, well, that I still do feel pain down there. Well, that's because the conditions got really bad and it's radiated out to the outside area around those areas where you don't have the pain receptors. Well, but going back to this, the thing that's interesting is when people are over here, they have to get back over here to have their body have the energy come back into those really weak areas, so that then they can have the healing crisis to help evacuate the poisons that are
Yep.
there. Because you have to have more activity in that area that's lost its activity to have the healing. Okay. Well, what happens is people will think that they were getting better because they lost the pain over here. Well, then when they go in reverse through the healing process,
Sure.
their pain
Oh, yeah.
their pain and information will come back, and then they'll start questioning everything. They'll be like, is the
No.
diet doing it? Is it going
Yeah.
wrong? What am I doing?
Why do they always blame it on the fruit?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
when really their body's healing, but they don't understand the process. And so that's what's very confusing to people, is because they don't understand that you're going to revisit sometimes certain pain in certain areas that you thought it went away, just because that's the healing process. And it's hard for people to understand the healing process, because we always judge things by, circumstances and the way we feel. And then this was a really interesting, I'm going to make a post about this sometime. I found this, someone else had posted this about, when we're in our comfort zone, right outside the comfort zone is the fear zone. And we start having lots of excuses and lack of confidence. And then
Yep.
as you keep going,
Response.
and then you'll get to another comfort zone, and then you'll keep
And it's
repeating it.
just like the stages as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Yeah.
people, they just don't understand that you have to go through a little bit of this with every moment of growth, when really you just start to learn to embrace these things, because that's part of the
Absolutely.
process. Yeah.
I love it when I start feeling pain, and
Yeah. And I love it when
I broke my little toe one time when I was in high school, and a year or so ago, like my entire side of my foot just felt numb and tingly all the time.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, either I'm regenerating something or there's going to be some parasites coming out.
Yeah. I know it.
But
I
yeah,
agree. Yeah, it's very interesting how the body will just come alive in different ways that we weren't used to it. Yeah, and it takes some time and some practice with these things, but I think it's really important for people to understand, because it just shows that we got to have patience through it all sometimes, and just trust that what we're doing is the right way. And that's why I feel so bad for some of these people that they don't understand these things well enough, because they haven't been studying it and researching it, and they don't have faith enough in it. And then they get swayed by these people that are going back to the animal products, and it's only because the neurotransmitters and all that stuff that they don't have enough of, because their adrenals are so low, the reason why they feel so much better on the animal products. But then they don't realize that that's only putting them back towards the disease pathway. It's not helping them to regenerate. And so, they just
I wish
don't.
they could just look within and just
I
see
know.
how, just listen to your body and take everything as it is and see how it makes you feel.
I know.
And when you go back to those dead foods, you're really going to feel.
I know. And it's just
truth.
sad. But they may actually need that in their journey to help them to finally get back to it and say that, hey, I grew from that experience, So
I hope that they do, yeah.
I do too. I always wish those people the best with those things, Yeah, well, cool, Destiny. What were you going to say?
Correlate that in your post with the
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna just make a post.
phases and how it correlates with each. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's
great.
what I'm gonna talk about, all those things sometime when I make a post. I'm like I said, I'm been getting really ready a lot here for my trip coming up, so I've been busy with things, and I haven't been
Can
able
you show any healing lines in my eyes?
I don't have your older photographs to compare.
No, I just mean in the
oh yeah,
that you took.
Yeah, I'll show you some that looks like it,
Just so
let's see.
people can see that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll show you some that look like it. Like that right there in their spleen.
Mm-hmm.
See all that white stuff down there? And see how it's not real dark or anything? Like, see that, you can definitely tell that's still, it's not come back all the way. But that, anytime you see all that, and then also there was one that I seen right up here that looked like it. Like, see that white in that area, and then a little bit in this area? Because, see, again, when you look in the terminology, and this is what people can remember.
Yeah.
It showed you in that diaphragm. See right there? See how it shows you the healing lines coming up from bottom? They call those calcium lutein lines. That's actually calcium that's coming up from the bottom. It always starts from the bottom and comes up, because that's going in reverse order. Same thing as this. It's going forward, going deeper, deeper. Well, over here, it's going up, 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 because it's coming back from the lowest area and coming up. That's why also, too, I could see in your right eye in your small intestines. How, see all that area right there? You can even see it before I even zoom in. So that looks
Yeah.
like all those weaknesses in your small intestines have been regenerating and coming back, you know. And you can even
Yeah.
see it right there in your pancreas too. See, in that area, you know. And then over here, a little bit in that one, in the
Yeah, I feel like I've had great
bronchioles.
improvement from my
And then
pancreas.
your ear area, since it's gotten better like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can definitely see it. And then the biggest thing I see for people too is when your eyes will lighten up. And I bet if you had showed me some that you had took several years ago, I bet you did have darker eyes. They were even
Oh my
darker.
God. Well, they were definitely just, you know, you could see more of the black outline of
Yeah,
everything,
just
and
probably more overall congestion in areas, and you can even
yeah,
see the
I feel
the
like my eyes are more murky right now versus before. You could see the ballooning effect and everything, and
mhm. Yeah, you could probably see even your drug spots or sore spots could have been darker too. Because I've seen that in a lot of people. They don't get them to go away completely, but they lighten
no,
up a lot. You know, they get
yeah,
real lighter. You know,
yeah. I wish I had photos from 2 years ago.
I know what you
Yeah.
mean. It's hard sometimes like that, but hey, you
I
know,
remember when I first found Dr. Morse and I took some pictures of my eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible. I'm deleting these now. I never
oh,
should.
I know. I know. I still have some that we kept that I can't really see much, but because I have true blue eyes too. I'm pretty sure because I have a few of my grandparents and stuff like that had true blue eyes, and my
Mm-hmm.
mom said that I had blonde hair when I was younger. So,
You're born.
but didn't have blue eyes when I was born because my mom has the dark blue eyes, or I mean dark, the eyes that have turned brown, but first couple of years, I had such a cover of black, over my eyes. I couldn't even see all my weaknesses below. But see, I haven't yet I've still got to work with Kaylee and take some professional shots of my own eyes. But I took this for one of my point and shoots with side
Yeah,
lighting, and see that looks like blue coming through in my stress rings.
yeah,
So and so you
definitely.
can tell. But yeah, I got a lot of
Yeah.
radial solarises, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a little bit of ballooning right there too in my descending, and then I have
Yeah,
a malabsorption in my areas, but I've got a lot of radial solarises in my master glands and stuff.
you
So yeah,
do.
yeah, I do have some, and I have a lot of irritations in my bowel wall, definitely, and that's my sigmoid as well, my sigmoid and my rectum area. So yeah, I have. And that's what I've been working on, of course, because I was very congested. I didn't ever have a lot of problems with constipation, but I definitely did with interstitial constipation.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool, Destiny. Well, I think this worked out great, and I hope it was very valuable for you too. I hope that
Yes,
it
thank
was.
you.
I hope it added to your other readings that you had, because I also remind people that it's good to get readings from different people, because some people may see something a little bit different than others, and I think we all have that in unique that we can all contribute to each other, and that's why I love to even give people readings on top of even what Dr. Morse has said, because I can kind of see how accurate I was. Did some of the stuff that I pointed out lined up with some of the stuff that he pointed out to you?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, good.
And
Because
even
go ahead. What are you saying?
pancreas and everything else. He
Yeah.
thought I was more subacute on that, and he didn't really see my malabsorption like I thought it was going to be chronic, and he was like, "Oh, that's just acute," and I'm just like, "What?"
Yeah.
But
Well, it's hard to see that without really good
yeah,
photographs. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah. He
And
had a
then,
hard time reading my eyes too with all the light on them. So,
yeah, that too, because I agree. I've seen your other photographs too, so it's
hmm,
it's hard sometimes like that. But yeah, I like to actually do that for people, because you never know when one person, because I've had people before that told me that you pointed out stuff that two or three people before didn't even see, and it's because sometimes those areas are so small that you may get it mixed up with the area right beside it, and they may not have their mapping right, or they may not have their chart in the right position. Or also, the biggest thing that I'm noticing is sometimes people, when they take the shot of the eye, they don't have the eye lined up with the camera. Like they're
right on.
looking a little bit like this, or they're like a
Sure,
little bit like this, and that messes up the mapping and
it does.
you can't get an accurate reading with your chart or anything if you're not dead on the eye. And that's the hardest thing ever with people. Sometimes they'll have their head at a weird angle, and it'll throw everything off. I have to literally sometimes, just so that I don't have to try to get people to take another picture, I literally have to change and move my chart and hold it at a weird angle. And it's very challenging. It is, but that's just part of it, with people, sure is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and sometimes I just have to make adjustments because I wish I could go to every one of my clients and just take their own photographs because some people, they struggle so bad that sometimes they'll give up, and it's really sad because and I can imagine though, because people are trying to take something it's supposed to be taken with macro technology with just a phone that's low resolution, and so what can you expect on getting a good IR photograph of something that needs macro technology with something that's just but they still are able to get me something good enough. It's just not,
Yeah.
it's not as good as what it could be, I guess. Yeah.
They should be able to. Do you refer people to a professional photographer to do that at all, or?
If they live in certain areas where I know of ones, like there's some of my clients that I've had that I've sent to this guy that I bought my camera from, that he's over in Escondido, California, by San Diego. And I've done sent like 7 or 8 people to him and have gotten good eye photographs from him.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a $8,000 setup. See, this is some pictures from him right here. See, see that massive lymphatic congestion.
Yeah, that's a great photo.
Yeah, and then
I just didn't know if just a typical photographer, if you could send them to a photography studio and they could do
they can, as long as they have a macro lens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's another one that someone that lives in San Diego. That's his photograph too. Yeah. Yeah. If they have macro lens, definitely. Now this was a good picture I wanted to show you. This is probably the best brown eye. Well, it was a blue eye, but it had turned so dark brown that I told her she needed to go get someone to help her to take a more professional shot. And I was so glad she did, because I'm working on trying to take my own eye this way that I'm about to show you, because this is probably one of the best dark blue eye shots I've ever seen, because they actually took it with a professional camera, but they didn't use the flash. They used the side lighting. But look at how much detail they got in that eye. See? Just amazing detail. But see, you can see the professional camera there. They didn't use the flash. Yep. They just used the side lighting. But man, you can see so much detail, and you can see how raised their bow wall is. It's very irritated, very, very irritated, their neural arch. But just excellent detail, so much excellent detail, And then I had another lady, and then sometimes you can see these you can see in people how irritated their bowels is because of how raised their fibers are. Let me find it right quick, and then I'll be wrapping this up with you. Let's see. These are all. I've started having to put everyone in folders and to put all their information in one folder, like a client record folder, But this was a great one. Not that shot. I want to show you this shot of a brown eye too, taken by a professional camera. The side lighting too. But look at how major. You can even see how raised it is. See, it looks like little raised fibers of strings. That's the bow wall again. Yeah, and see how raised it is? That's crazy. So you can even see the shadows of how raised it is.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, that's the bow rim or the bow wall. And that's what Dr. Morse talked about. That's major inflammation in the wall of the bow. The wall of the bow. And he actually talked about that's not the actual autonomic nerve wreath. That's the actual shape of the bow. He was talking about, because he said that in one of his videos. It was like, because that's one part he doesn't agree with. It's not the autonomic nerve wreath. It's that shape. It's the shape of the bow. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's very interesting, and I really love it. I'm dedicated to passing this information down to the next generation and taking over for these other people that are in their retirement area, like Dr. Morse and stuff, just because we need more and more people to carry on this great, art to people, Yeah, it's very important, Yeah. Well, cool, Destiny. Well, this has been great, and thank you so much for doing this with me. And and I'll send all this to you, and I share all of this with people in the Dropbox. I send it to you in an email, and then you can go on the Dropbox and you can download it, and that's how I have to because it's too big of a file to share with them.
And if you're curious to hear Dr. Morse's audio analysis, I can send that back to you via Dropbox as well.
Yeah, you can do that, and then I can compare it and see if I was offering any or anything like that. And then I'll send you the health questionnaire real soon. I have it right here, and I made up one myself. And I took a lot of Dr. Morse's, of course, his at the very beginning, but then I added some great ones to it. And actually, I've got one of my clients had went to Hilda Larson, and
Uh-huh.
Hilda Larson had a great idea that I took from hers. It talks about your life history, talks about, you
Sure.
know, how your conception
Yep.
was, your birth, your early childhood, all that. It's asking like the more psychological issues, and that's really a great thing that Dr. Moore should have in his too. But so we just kind of,
Emotional.
I'd kind of improved or just added to it, you
Yep.
know, of course. And then you probably seen my how to take eye pictures PDF that I put
Yes.
together, you know, and I
That
really
was great.
worked hard at that
I love
because,
all the examples that you used.
yeah, because I mean, it's just these are all, a lot of these are with phones, so you can take some good ones with phones. But yeah, I have that for everyone because I got so tired of like having to write all this stuff out for people that
Yeah.
now I can just send them this
Yep.
PDF and just be
Here
like,
you
read
go.
this.
Here's your guideline.
Yeah, in that way. But yeah,
Yeah,
but
I had my iPhoto in there under sulfur.
which one? Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
And the
yeah, I had it in
how to
there.
take pictures.
Yeah, I had it in there as one
Yeah.
of the I think I had it down here as one of the good photographs. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a blue eye that is turned orange brown. You know,
Yep.
down. Yeah, exactly. On the
Yep.
right settings. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's right. Because I'm just showing some good examples to people. But yeah, I'll
Mm-hmm.
send you that health questionnaire, and you just fill it out when you can, and I'll do a herbal protocol for you too.
Okay.
That way you'll
Great.
have it on your records, you know, just for when later you want to
You.
buy
Yeah.
some, and you can compare it to the other people, Dr. Morse and stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way you'll have it, and then we can do that. I'll do that for you as soon as I can. I probably won't be able to get that back to you till after I get
Oh
to
yeah.
Bali,
You
but
enjoy
I'll
your trip.
yeah, I'll get it to you
Yeah.
though soon enough, you know, of course. Yeah. Well,
And is there
cool.
anything else that you wanted me to elaborate on? I
If
have
you,
really low blood pressure, so how does that correlate? Like you were
oh,
saying with
that's your
Ellen
adrenals.
Jensen.
Yeah, that's your adrenals. That's
Yeah.
definitely, that makes perfect sense. Because see, I didn't
Yeah.
know that, but I could have guessed that because again,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen your health questionnaire. But that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense because of your adrenals, how weak your adrenals are, and also your kidneys. But
Yep.
definitely that one adrenal, and I forgot if it was on the right or left side. I'd have to go back and look.
Right. I'm
But
pretty sure.
yeah, I think so. But that makes perfect sense because mine are the same way. You know, I have
Mm-hmm.
really, I have to, I'm actually taking licorice root with me on the trip. I'm taking some of Dr. Morse's formulas too, of course,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely don't go without licorice because it just
I
helps me
can't.
so much.
I
You
don't
know,
have enough
just
energy. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
cool, Destiny. Well, it's been such a pleasure. It really has. And I've enjoyed talking with you and doing this with you. And thank you so much because it was hard with even my other client that I'm fixing to do in just a minute. I'm fixing to do her Zoom call for her too that won the contest. Is that I was talking to my
Okay.
girlfriend and I was like, I wish that some of these people could win it that have these really good photographs because I want to get a really good one for the recording. But then I decided, I was like, she said, well, Thad, you can still let these people win it, and then you can do the call for them, and then you can just get Destiny or someone like that to do the one that you use for
Mm-hmm.
your example. And I was like, well, that's a good point. So that's when I decided, and I was like, it'd be something nice to do for you anyways, you know, as a way to say thank you, you know.
Yeah. You're the
Yeah.
best. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Destiny. Well, it's a pleasure talking with you today, and
Always.
yeah, and you take care and enjoy your summer too with your family and stuff, and you know, I'll be happy to help you any way I can in the future if you need me to.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
get a hold of you soon. We're actually coming down to Florida in a couple weeks, so we're going to
Oh,
be driving
good.
through Alabama, so maybe we can meet you
Well,
at a
no,
park or something.
well, no, I can't. I wish I could, but remember, I'm gonna be on my trip.
For how long?
Oh, I'm leaving May the 1st, and I won't be back till July the 24th.
Oh, great.
Yeah, yeah,
Good.
yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah, I
getting
didn't
to stay
know
over
you were
there
going to
for a
be there
while.
for 3 weeks or so. I didn't realize
Yeah,
it was going to be that long.
yeah.
Good.
I have a big retreat that I'm going to the beginning of July that I'm actually
Uh-huh.
teaching. I mean, not beginning of July, beginning of June that I'm teaching at. But
Yeah.
we discovered that it was actually much cheaper to leave in the beginning of May than it was at the end of May because it's during the peak season. And we
Yeah.
literally saved like $500 for
That's
just one
great.
plane ticket. And so I was like, well, let's just leave a little early. There's nothing holding us back. So, and
Maybe
plus
go
we'll
next
just,
year too.
yeah. And we'll just have
Good.
us a
Yeah.
vacation while we're there too, you know? So
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
Good. You
yeah.
guys enjoy.
Oh, we will. We will. We've been there one time before. We only got to be there for 2 weeks though. So we look more forward to being there for longer.
Well,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I take 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, you take care, Destiny, and
Okay.
I'll talk to you next time. And
Okay.
I'll be sending all this to you. And much love to you.
Sending all my love to you guys.
Yeah. Talk to you later next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.